Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I am here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California, where the flannel shirt is our state flag, the pit bull is our state bird, and cannabis is our state flower. Um, I've not been doing as many live streams as I would have liked. I've been busy as shit. I've been out of town. Hello, Karen. How are you? Um, and Josh, how's it going, guys? I've been fucking tired. But a whole day long yesterday, as more information was coming in about Julian Assange's appearance in court and everything related to that. I was steamed with rage. I don't know. I was fucking heated. And 24 hours later, I've found two whole YouTube channels who have covered this. Two. And that's Gordon Dimmick and Graham Elwood. And Graham Elwood only covered it because he ran into Taylor, my co-host for the Action for Assange vigils, for the Free Assange, ran into her at a Jimmy Dore show over the weekend, and she flat out told him, "Hey, you guys need to cover this shit." Everyone's watching Graham do his game show, which I don't give a fuck. This is the only time that I have to do this tonight, so I'm gonna do this when I have time for it. And if I had a schedule that didn't demand me at work 8, 9, 10 hours a day, then I would be, I would have a regular tube schedule and shit like that. Fucking, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you for tearing yourselves away from Graham Elwood and his game show. I appreciate the fuck out of that. I do. And we'll get to how I feel about independent media's complete and total lack of courage here in a moment. Craig Murray, who has written extensively about Julian Assange and about what's been happening to him and about the condition that he's in, along with John Pilger, have Craig Murray has an article up on his webpage, and he was in the courtroom yesterday, which seems like almost a week ago to me at this point. I'm going to quote extensively from the article here, bits and pieces, because it's a longer style essay. I recommend that you guys read it when you get a chance. I will actually do show notes tonight, I promise, and I will put a link to that in the show notes. But Craig Murray says, before I get on to the blatant lack of fair process, the first thing I must note was Julian's condition. I was badly shocked by just how much weight my friend has lost, by the speed his hair has receded, and by the appearance of premature and vastly accelerated aging. He has a pronounced limp that I've never seen before. Since his arrest, he's lost over 15 kilograms in weight. For our American audience, it's about 35 pounds, pushing 40 pounds. Kilogram, I believe, is 2.7, 2.2. So 35. Hey, Rob. Hey, RSK. We'll get to that, RSK. We will. I'm going to continue on with this article here real quick. His physical appearance was not as shocking as his mental deterioration. When asked to give his name and date of birth, he struggled visibly over several seconds to recall both. We'll come to the important content of his statement at where did it go? At the end of proceedings in due course, but his difficulty in making it was very evident. It was a real struggle for him to articulate the words and focus and train his train of thought. Now, these are Craig Murray's words that I'm about to read, because if you've been watching this show, you know that I've been one of the few people who have been screaming Julian Assange is being tortured for quite some time now. Craig Murray says, until yesterday, I'd always been quietly skeptical of those who claimed that Julian's treatment amounted to torture, even of Nils Melzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, and skeptical of those who suggested he may be subject to debilitating drug treatments. But having attended the trials in Uzbekistan of several victims of extreme torture and having worked with survivors from Sierra Leone and elsewhere, I can tell you that yesterday changed my mind entirely, and Julian exhibited exactly the symptoms of a torture victim, brought blinking into the light, particularly in terms of disorientation, confusion, and the real struggle to assert free will through the fog of learned helplessness. I want to pause here in this article for a moment to discuss the concept of learned helplessness. You were up before 5 Eastern and followed Gordon Dimmick's live stream. That's awesome. I tried to catch some of it too. Yeah, I was out of town all weekend. I managed to get a show in Sunday night with Ian Schlackman. If you haven't seen that show, please go do so. The Green Party is trying to copy the exact same style of primary rigging that the DNC did in 2016. And the Greens very much seem to be worried about protecting their institution more than serving people. So please give that a shot. Learned helplessness is a condition of institutionalization, and that can be as broad as you want it to be. In Julian Assange's case, it specifically applies to his isolation in the Ecuadorian embassy, as well as spending the last near 200 days in solitary confinement, 21 to 23 hours a day. When you've been institutionalized, when everything that you have in terms of what makes you a free human being, with the exception of your thoughts, has been taken away from you. And by that I mean your meals, your food, your laundry, your what you can order from your commissary, if you're allowed to, for that matter. All of your decisions, every decision that you would make throughout the day, that has been made for you, not with your consideration in mind, but with your either punishment in mind or your forced non-response in mind. When those decisions are made for you for an extended period of time, the human mind has a way of, in order to survive, just sort of shutting down and accepting that the lights will come on at 5:30 or 6 a.m. You will have breakfast. You will mill about for several hours. You will have a shitty lunch. You will mill about for several more hours. If you're lucky enough to not be in solitary, you'll have dinner. Your lights will go off at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, depending on what institution you're in. And that's your whole fucking life. It's designed to break a human being. And every aspect of Julian Assange's courtroom appearance is that of someone who is struggling with every ounce of will that they have left in their clearly, if not fully broken, certainly debilitated body. Every amount of free will is being exerted to not give in 100% to what Craig Murray has defined as learned hopelessness. I'm going to read on here a little bit. Craig Murray says, I had been even more skeptical of those who claimed, as a senior member of his legal team did to me on Sunday night, that they were worried that Julian might not live to the end of the extradition process. I now find myself not only believing it, but haunted by the thought. Everybody in that court yesterday saw that one of the greatest journalists and most important dissidents of our times is being tortured to death by the state before our eyes. To see my friend, the most articulate man, the fastest thinker I have ever known, reduced to shambling and incoherent wreck was unbearable. Yet the agents of the state, particularly the callous magistrate, Vanessa Barriester, were not just prepared, but eager to be a part of this blood sport. She actually told him that if he were incapable of following proceedings, then his lawyers could explain what had happened to him. The question of why a man who, by the very charges against him, was acknowledged to be highly intelligent and competent, been reduced to this by the state to someone incapable of following court proceedings, gave her not a millisecond of concern. I want you guys to think about that for a second, because Craig Murray couldn't be more right here. The entire reason Julian Assange is locked up is because he possesses talents and skills that surpass the capabilities of innumerable people. He possessed the determination and drive to launch WikiLeaks as a publishing outlet that would bring some daylight into a world more and more receding into darkness, more and more receding into rule of law done in the shadows. The judge in particular is someone whose role in this isn't that of I am a non-biased or fairly non-partisan or arbiter of the rule of law. She is not there clearly to hear anything that that Julian Assange's lawyers have to say. She has no concern for the condition that Julian Assange is in, reflected in her behavior. So what happened in court yesterday was they went to determine a timetable for his extradition. Julian's lawyers have argued very, very reasonably that they can't mount an adequate defense for this extradition hearing because they haven't had access to their client. They don't have access to all of the evidence being used against him. Julian Assange himself didn't even receive fucking mail until a few weeks ago. A lot of that mail, by the way, included materials that he could use in preparation for his defense. Back to Craig Murray, the reasons given by Assange's defense team for more time to prepare were both compelling and startling. They had very limited access to their client in jail and had not been permitted to hand him any documents about the case until 1 week ago. He had also only just been given limited computer access, and all of his relevant records and materials had been seized from the Ecuadorian embassy by the U.S. government. He had no access to his own materials for the purpose of preparing his defense. Not only were they seized in the Ecuadorian embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy itself collected all of his effects and sent them not to Belmarsh prison, not to Julian Assange, not to his lawyers, not to his mom or his dad or his brother, but to the fucking CIA. And by the way, we just found out that the CIA got to watch Pamela Anderson in the women's bathroom as part of their constant live feed that UC Global, the Spanish security company tasked with providing the security to the Ecuadorian embassy, was feeding the CIA directly live in real time while they were spying on Julian Assange. Furthermore, the defense argued they were in touch with the Spanish courts about a very important, relevant legal case in Madrid, which would provide vital evidence. But it showed that the CIA had been putting UC Global contracted to provide security there. Crucially, this included spying on privileged conversations between Assange and his lawyers discussing his defense against these extradition proceedings, which had been in train in the U.S. since 2010. In any normal process, the fact would in itself be sufficient to have the extradition proceedings dismissed. Incidentally, I, being Craig Murray, the gentleman who wrote this, learned on Sunday that the Spanish material produced in court, which had been commissioned by the CIA, specifically includes high-resolution video coverage of Julian and Craig Murray discussing various matters. Skip ahead a little bit. For the prosecution, James Lewis, QC, stated that the government strongly opposed any delay to extradition being given for the defense to prepare, and strongly opposed any separate consideration of the question of whether the charge was a political offense excluded by the extradition treaty. Barrister took her cue from Lewis and stated categorically that the date for the extradition hearing, the 25th of February, could not be changed. She was open to changes in dates for submission of evidence and responses before this and called a 10-minute recess for the prosecution and defense to agree to these steps. What happened next was very instructive. There were 5 representatives of the U.S. government present. Initially 3, and 2 more arrived in the course of the hearing. Seated at desks behind the lawyers in court, the prosecution lawyers immediately went into huddle with the U.S. representatives, then went outside the courtroom with them to decide how to respond on the dates. Let's back up for a second. Julian Assange is in a British court and yet there are, and I don't know if these are intelligence community or ambassadorial, which is basically the same thing, or State Department, which again, basically the same thing, but there's damn near a half dozen U.S. officials sitting directly behind the prosecution in this matter. This is Julian Assange, a man who is visibly a victim of torture, who is visibly being crucified in slow motion, who couldn't immediately spit out his name and birth date when asked, who was appearing in natural light for the first time in fucking who knows how long. It's him, his legal team, who has very, very limited access to their client, limited access to the materials they need to prepare his defense. It's those guys versus a team of U.S. representatives from the U.S. and the British court system. It's a fucking kangaroo court. Let's see. after the recess, the defense team stated that they could not, in their professional opinion, adequately prepare if the hearing date were kept to February, but within barristers' instruction to do so, they nevertheless outlined a proposed timetable on delivery of evidence. In responding to this, Lewis's junior counsel scurried to the back of the court to consult the Americans again, while Lewis actually told the judge he was taking instructions from those behind. It's important to note that as he said this, it was not the UK Attorney General's office who were being consulted, but the United States Embassy. Lewis received his American instructions and agreed that the defense might have 2 months to prepare their evidence. They said they needed an absolute minimum of 3. But the February hearing date may not be moved. Barrister gave a ruling agreeing to everything Lewis had said. The U.S. government was clearly dictating its instructions to Lewis, who was relaying those instructions to Barrister, who was ruling them as her legal decision. This charade may as well have been cut, and the U.S. government simply sat on the bench to control the whole process. Nobody could sit there and believe that they were any part of a genuine legal process, or the barrister was given a moment's consideration to the arguments of the defense. Her facial expressions on the few occasions she looked at the defense ranged from contempt to boredom to sarcasm. When she looked at Lewis, she was openly attentive and warm. The extradition is plainly being rushed through in accordance with Washington dictated timetable. Apart from a desire to preempt the Spanish court ruling providing evidence on the CIA activity and sabotaging the defense, what makes the February date so important to the USA is Craig Murray asking why he thinks February 25th is an important day in terms of why the U.S. won. So I'm going to attempt to explain this. And I may be off on this. And if it turns out that I am, I will surely try to come back on the air and correct my mistake. In my opinion, the reason the February 25th date is set so firm in the minds of the United States is for a handful of reasons. One, as we can see, it makes it that much more difficult for Julian Assange's legal team to prepare an adequate defense for him. If they can rush him through the extradition process, if his legal team can't find an avenue in which to delay these proceedings, all the better for the people who want to get him on American soil so they can shut him the fuck away after he's held up as an example of what happens when you tell the truth about the goddamn government. Another reason that they want this date set so that this date is firm in their minds is that there's a very, very good chance the person who is currently president, barring any kind of miraculous victory by one Bernard Jesus Sanders, Trump will still be president. So what they can do now that there's, February 25th is post Iowa, we are full steam ahead with a presidential primary where people are actually coming out and voting. The ability to distract the American public with not only election season, but impeachment season is something that these guys can't pass up. If we can pull the focus of the public as far away from the fact that Julian Assange is being tortured day in and day out, if we can distract the public from thinking about, hey, maybe we should have a free fucking press, or maybe publishers who put out information that the government doesn't like have the exact same rights that they've always fucking had every always. I saw one glimmer of hope today. We're saying I haven't watched the thing, but apparently Bernie Sanders said in an interview that he didn't want to prosecute whistleblowers under the Espionage Act. I assume that means there's another avenue of legal recourse outside of the Espionage Act that he would then prosecute whistleblowers under. But yeah, it's if anybody's conversational with Craig Murray, please tell him that there are multiple reasons for a hard date on the 25th, and that most of it have to do with it being an opportune time to get some dirt done undercover while so much more is going on. Back to the article. Judge Barrister, Magistrate Barrister then capped it all by saying that the February hearing will be held not at the comparatively open and accessible Westminster Magistrates Court where we again being Craig Murray, but at Belmarsh Magistrates Court, the grim high security facility used for preliminary legal processing of terrorists attached to the maximum security prison where Assange is being held. There are only 6 seats for the public in even the largest court at Belmarsh, and the object is plainly to evade public scrutiny and make sure that Barrister is not exposed in public again to a genuine account of her proceedings like this one that I am reading to you. Murray says he will probably be unable to get into the substantive hearing at Belmarsh. I saw somebody in the chat say that they were watching Gordon's live stream of it. There were 150 to 250 people who were in support of Julian Assange outside of Westminster Magistrates Court while this was happening. It brought a Twitter friend and active supporter of Julian Assange, Emmy, who goes by Greek Emmy on Twitter, brought her to tears. Not just the condition of Julian Assange, but the treatment that he was facing, both in Belmarsh and in this fucking kangaroo court. Barrister turned to Julian and ordered him to stand and asked him if he had understood the proceedings. He replied in the negative and said that he could not think and gave every appearance of disorientation. Then he seemed to find an inner strength, drew himself up a little, and said, "I do not understand how this process is equitable. This superpower had 10 years to prepare for this case, and I can't even access my writings. It's very difficult where I am to do anything. These people have unlimited resources." The effort then seemed to become too much. His voice dropped and he became increasingly confused and incoherent. He spoke of whistleblowers and publishers being labeled enemies of the people, then spoke about his children's DNA being stolen and of being spied on in his meetings with the psychologist, which of course is going to fucking happen. Murray says, "I am not suggesting at all that Julian was wrong about these points, but he could not properly frame nor articulate them. He was plainly not himself, very ill, and it was just horribly painful to watch. Barrister showed neither sympathy nor the least concern. She tartly observed that if he could not understand what had happened, his lawyers could explain it to him, and she swept out of court." The article closes by saying, "Unless Julian is released shortly, he will be destroyed. If the state can do this, then who is next?" The answer to that is any of us. Any of us. are subject to the exact same treatment and fate as Julian Assange if he is held up as the example of what happened when you piss off a superpower. His lawyers then issued oh, come on. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the statement that his legal team issued, and I'm having a rough go of it. Jesus Christ. Truthdig is not cooperating with me at all. Oh, fuck it. I think you guys got the meat and potatoes of that. I'm gonna go to the chat now and see what you guys are saying. Hey Sherry, I'd crack in 10 minutes. Hate even being bored that long. Love to Julian. Yeah, so again, this is what happens. You get into a rhythm when you're locked up. And it's not a rhythm of your own determination, but the human mind can cope with an incredible amount of shit. There are absolutely limits to that. There are absolutely qualifiers there. It depends on how you started out going in, but we're talking about 9 years of isolation for Julian Assange. We're talking about arbitrary and extrajudicial. We're talking about many different forms of torture. We're according to Craig Murray, he's no longer skeptical or I don't know, even Craig Murray now believes that Julian Assange has been on the receiving end of debilitating drug treatments. And I know how people who have been given antipsychotics walk. I know how they talk. I know how their face looks. I know there's a droop to their eyes and their cheeks. There's like a Thorazine-esque shuffle and amble that people do where they can't their motor skills aren't working the same. It takes effort and energy to put one foot in front of the other. And this seems to be the way that Julian Assange has been walking around. Plus, there's the thing where the guy hasn't seen natural light in fucking who knows how long. It is yeah, you're right, Christy. He's limping now. I don't know. I don't know where the fucking limp came from. I don't know if we'll ever find out where the limp came from. Solitary Reaper. Ron Paul made a video about Julian today on the Liberty Report. Tulsi and Rand Paul must introduce urgent bipartisan bill to dismiss all charges against Julian Assange. I wouldn't hold your breath on that. I really wouldn't. Although I think that if anybody would be prompted to do something like that, the two people you named would be it. Powerful psych drugs do that and make the person yeah, that's what I'm saying. You give somebody enough antipsychotics their ability to pick their knees up when they walk goes away. If you have even a slight agitation in one of your legs, it becomes more and more pronounced. Why speak when you're in a van and can't be heard? Because there's a camera in your face with a microphone. There was a thing way up at the beginning of the chat that I was going to get back to. Yes, he will have appeals afterwards. There is no there's no doubt about that. There really isn't. Come on. Go through the thing I wanted to answer. Now it looks like it's gone. Oh, Jordan Sheridan interviewed Jill Stein, including discussing Assange. Jordan thinks he can't put Assange in the title or it will get censored. It will get censored. Absolutely. 100%. Jordan Sheridan does some good reporting. In between his, if Jordan Sheridan were to broadcast for 24 hours a day, you would get about 2.5 hours of good reporting and 21.5 hours of give this channel money. I can't watch his shit, man. I can't. And that sucks because he does do good reporting, but I can't hang out for the telethon. Like, it is so hard for me to get through. You can't go 3 minutes in one of his broadcasts without him hitting you up for money, whether it's in the chat or verbally. It's so fucking distracting and it's hard to watch. I don't know if he did that in his interview with Jill Stein, again, because it's really fucking hard to watch the shit. And it sucks because shit, the guy has broken some really big stories. Like, it had he not been with TYT, he never would have got the chance to wave a microphone in Donna Brazil's face and say, hey, we found out you were, giving questions to Hillary Clinton. What's up with that? But fuck, dude, I can't tell people how to do their own show. I can't, dude. Look at me. I'm fucking, sitting in a screen porch in Boulder Creek. It's it's not like I'm on top of the game with fucking hundreds of thousands of subscribers and shit like that. Which brings me to a point. Because this is a small channel, because this channel has been getting censored since I launched it, because YouTube lets me keep maybe 1 or 2 new subscribers for every 15 to 30 people that do subscribe, because of that, no fucks to give. None. Zero. We'll be talking about Julian Assange whenever the fuck I want to, putting his name in the title, and if that means that the algorithm censors me, fucking A. It does. I count I guess I kind of count on you guys a little bit more than I should to get the word out about the show. I work a lot and I suck at promoting. Like, really, really, really suck at promoting. But I'm not going to let the threat of demonetization stop me from doing this. I'm not going to let the threat of, oh, maybe a few people won't hear my pitch about why you need to constantly give money to this show. I don't worry about that. I have a Patreon. I need to fucking make it better for the viewers. But that's the extent of it. I'm not going to interrupt a fucking broadcast to be like, dig deep, motherfucker. You know, it's not gonna happen. I like small ponds. You know, I was kind of joking with somebody over the weekend who is a patron of the show, and he was like, dude, if more people knew about you, you would easily blow up. You would easily get, you know, a much bigger platform. But I kind of like it that they don't. You're like an underground comic, underground musician kind of thing about it. And by the time, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now, or something like that, like as people start to become aware of the show, they're going to have no fucking idea what they're getting in, because they're going to be coming from places that do nothing but horse race content. And I can't fucking stand the fact that my colleagues or contemporaries or whatever have put such a premium on YouTube ad revenue that they would significantly alter their content or censor themselves or try to find a way to sneak in a little bit of information about Julian Assange in an otherwise unrelated story. It's fucking cowardice is what it is. And I understand that it's also self-preservation. If you've made the decision to make something like this your life, this is how you're going to pay your bills, this is how you're going to eat that day, then yeah, dude, you have to be mindful of what you're saying to a degree. But that ends, in my opinion, with Julian Assange, because if we take away this man, what he stands for, what he represents, if content creators sit idly by or intentionally stay on the sidelines because they may not get to do their YouTube thing, or they may not get paid as much to do their YouTube thing if they talk about it, they're fucking cowards. Man, I'll say that to anybody's face. I will, if anybody wants to, you know, lobby for me to go on a show to tell the host that they're being a coward, I'm down. I'll do it. We've got a very few names out there that aren't, and most of them have been guests on this show. In fact, I think all of them have been guests on the show. I don't know whether or not Jason Burmis has hit this, but it seems like something he would be into. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to you guys. Oh, well, if Quinn's rolling a joint, I should at least take a little dab for Jesus. Not censoring myself has gotten me blacklisted in a lot of forms of media throughout my entire life. And if I cared, I would have a very different show. What bothers me about this is that it's so fucking crucial to a free press. It's so the whole concept of independent media exists as a thing largely because we have sources like WikiLeaks that we can go to, and we can make our fucking bona fides by holding up that organization, by saying, look, there's an outlet that shines a light on the fucking dark, brutal shit that your governments do to you. We're going to share that information with you. And instead, they're like, but my horse race. I can't do that shit. I can't. I won't. Ron Placone is a good show, but it's mostly relevant to Americans. He covers a lot of local news. I lost respect for it. You know what? I love Ron Placone. I do. He's someone that I consider an actual friend and not just a colleague. We, talk a few times a week. We text and shit like that. I have asked him to cover Assange a little bit more. And what he's done is honest. I mean, the shows Get Your News On with Ron, it's user submitted content. If the people who watch the show submit more content related to Julian Assange, he'll cover it. But he's not going into it with an agenda for the day. He's going into it with the articles that we all send him in the morning. What would be a heavy episode? And why doesn't this fucking fire we go? Yeah, I have yet to have Chris Hedges on. Straight the fuck up, the show isn't big enough for Chris Hedges to come on. Like I've asked. It's not for lack of trying. But the lack of, a 250,000 subscribers is keeping Chris Hedges away from this. I would like to think that he would one day do a free Assange vigil. I would like to think that. I would also like to think that John Pilger, Craig Murray, or George Smallsy, or the people that were integral to Unity for Jay would also do a free Assange vigil. But I don't know them from fucking Adam. And getting a cold call from me doesn't have the effect that Joe Lauria calling someone up and asking them to come on to a show does. Straight the fuck up. I don't know anything about whether I go back and forth with Tim Black because there's a lot of different lines that dude has to walk. And there's a lot of sacrifices that he made in the last couple of years to do the show that he's doing. And I would prefer to think that Tim Black is on a journey as well, and that he hasn't found his groove and is just going to ride in that groove for eternity. Freethinker 59, I was shocked Graham Elwood had no clue on his show on Sunday that the Assange hearing was going to be the following day. I'm pretty sure, Freethinker, that you can thank Taylor Hudak 100% for Graham Elwood covering that show, or covering the hearing. I think without the suggestion from Taylor that he proactively cover this stuff instead of waiting until way after the fact, or there's already several videos out. I think that's awesome. By the way, if you're in Graham's chat, fucking tell him to come back on this show. I've emailed him a couple of times. We were supposed to set something up, but that fell by the wayside. I'm I'm not knocking Graham. I'm not. If it sounds like I am, I'm not. I gave Graham props at the beginning of the show for being one of the only like 3 or 4 people to talk about this so far. I also did give the credit to Taylor for getting him to do it. But he did. He went, like he could have just as easily been like, nah, I've got a horse race to cover, which is absolutely what Jamarl Thomas does. Jamarl's been invited on the Free Assange vigils. Jamarl has been given every opportunity in the world to come back onto this show. He's had people suggest to him that he do more Assange coverage, and he falls back on, they take away my money. They censor the rest of my content. I can't do it. I won't do it. I don't think one person can make a difference. And that's just where it's at. Like, this is a guy who's so focused on the political horse race because it generates revenue that he had to start a second channel just so he could talk about them aliens or fucking play chess, you know? Yeah, Solitary Reaper, about a rigged horse race. That's what kills me. You're supposed to be the independent media. You're supposed to be the left media. And what are you doing? Talking about fucking Democrats all day long. Talking about MSNBC hosts all day long. Talking about Chris Cillizza and fucking Cuomo and every other Chris that works for CNN. The one Chris that they don't talk about often enough is goddamn Chris Hedges. Like, if you're independent media, why the fuck is all of your content coming from mainstream sources? Why the fuck is all of your coverage about the exact same shit that you can turn on a mainstream channel and see coverage about? Yes, it's delivered differently. Yes, there are people who are pointing out that oh, it's propaganda. Okay, go somewhere with that. If you can recognize that it's propaganda, you can fucking contact the same independent journalists I do. You can quote from the same non-mainstream sources that I do. You don't have to put up a fucking MSNBC clip every 15 minutes. You don't have to. You don't. That's my plea right now to left and independent media. Stop using mainstream material as the baseline content. Please. Please? I'll get stoned. I don't know if you happen to come out here and be in the area because I'm too poor to travel. But you find yourself in Santa Cruz County and you want to get high and you have a left show or an independent show and you stop using mainstream content for your baseline material, I'll get you hired in giraffe pussy. I will. What's a new one? It's a bummer that many of the decent alt thinkers and producers on the tube get so busy putting out a product rather than quality, up-to-date info. Okay, that's the thing. That's if you're selling the brand of your show, or if you're created a brand for your show, like you're peddling a product. Thank you for saying that, Miss Tree. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yes. Good night, Rob. Thanks for hanging out. And thank you for saying I'm your favorite channel. That's fucking awesome. Research CIA infiltration and election interference in Canada. John Diefenbaker was forced out by the CIA because he wanted to have an independent Canada. That's interesting, man. And by the way, Quinn, like if you ever want to come on and talk about any of this shit, we can set up an interview, and I'll be more than happy to. I'll be more than happy to have that conversation with you because I don't know fucking shit about I don't know shit about Canadian politics. I don't. So hit me up on the tweeters and we'll set it up. Thank you, Josh, by the way. Yeah, I would throw Gordon some cash if I wasn't. I have openly joked that I would leave my wife for Gordon Dimmick. He's a beautiful man. And if you're not already subscribed to his channel or into his content, please go and check out Gordon Dimmick and yeah, throw some cash at the guy. Christy was there when I made that joke for the first time. That was red. Okay, I've been at it for about an hour. This is really all I have the fucking energy for. So I should probably go ahead and wrap this up. Tomorrow night will be our 16th, I believe, Free Assange vigil. Is it 15 or 16, Christy? It's a fantastic look. Yeah, so 16. So we'll be 4 months into these vigils tomorrow night. Which seems fucking incredible to me for a lot of different reasons. The guest will be Sean O'Brien, who, if you remember, it was back in like March, I think. I had him on this show. He's been a previous Unity for J guest as well. The guy is a computer genius, and he's got a lot to say, both in terms of how data collection works and how our privacy is basically non-existent thanks to surveillance capitalism. But he's also got things that we can do about that. He has taught classes at Yale on how to do this. He ran the Yale Privacy Lab, which is hilarious in and of itself. And I asked him about it on his show. I'm like, how was it knowing that like half the people in the room are going to wind up working for the intelligence community, like shit like that, because it's fucking Yale. But he's a fascinating cat. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to have a fuck ton to talk about. And hopefully I will be a little bit more, I don't know, energetic. I'm feeling beat. I'm fuck, Jesus Christ. I'm still on the same deck job that I've been on for about 2 weeks, because every day we get a new change order or two. It's been a minute. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that. Click the notification bell. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a notification, but I think it increases your chances. I do have a Patreon. If you support independent media, you'd like to add this channel to the content creators that you're currently supporting, you can go to patreon.com/slownewsday. I am in the middle of sorting out um, an issue that I've had on Patreon where my full-length videos on Patreon are now just the length of the clips that I have put on YouTube to tease people to become Patreon members. So if they can't give me a good answer in the next couple of days as to what I can do to fix it, then what I'm going to have to do is delete all of the clips off of YouTube and then upload the full-length videos to YouTube, set them as private, and then re-upload the full-length videos back to Patreon. But I have them all. That will happen hopefully Sunday. Hopefully. I have another fucking wedding to go to on Saturday, but it's close and it's a Halloween themed wedding and it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. So it'll be fun. Yeah, until then, this has been Slow News Day. I'm Steve Poikinen. Good luck to us all.